the moment I start to focus on my pain, I mean, it's important to acknowledge the pain and see what is it your body's trying to tell you, or what is it that your emotions are trying to tell you. But to get out of that place, because I don't want to stay in that place, I shift it with gratitude. And man, gratitude's alchemy. Turns what you can't do into what you can do, and what you don't have into what you do have. And it's been a life changer for me, as far as like shifting my mindset every single day from the moment I wake up.
On my $1,000,000 hustle. It's
the $1,000,000 Hustle Podcast, where we keep it real, I stated entrepreneurship wisdom. Learn to think like a millionaire and hustle like you're broke. Here's your host, Billy the Kid, aka Billionaire.
Think like a millionaire and hustle like you broke. This free game to change your life, you better so. Think like a millionaire and hustle like you broke.
Welcome to the $1,000,000 Hustle Podcast, baby. It is your boy Billy the Kid, aka BDK, aka Billionaire in this mug. I am excited. It is Friday today. By the time you listen to this, it will be $1,000,000 Monday. Today is $1,000,000 Monday if you're listening, because we release the podcast every 2 weeks, every other Monday. And I am excited today, but again, it is Friday. Shout out to Amberly Lago. This interview we just did is so powerful. I have two daughters, and I am a big advocate for women, right? Like being leaders and all that good stuff. And this woman is so strong, and it's not just a women thing. It's literally just a human, like a great human. She's just a great human, and anybody listening, like, talk about being a warrior. Like, if you want to learn how to be a warrior today and keep life going, guys, you're in the right place today. There were so many great things today. We didn't even get to talk about her book, it's her story, but True Grit and Grace. Grab a copy. I'm gonna put it on my Amazon link. If you go to amazon.com/shop/Billy the Kid, I'm gonna have the book, and that'll be book of the week for this episode. Again, her story is just amazing. I cannot wait for you guys to listen. Literally, it's a mental workout listening to her. Like, literally, my mind is like, I got chills, and I'm just ready to roll after listening to her. I've heard her speak, and she's just an amazing human being. So once again, thank you, Amberly, for being on the podcast. And I know those of you who are listening, it's a life-changing show, right? Like, I always preach that, and I truly mean it. And again, it's on the listen to this episode today. It's life-changing. I look at every episode as a book. Like, every episode is a book. If you listen to it and apply some of the things, or all the things, or at least one thing out of the podcast, your life will change. And this one is truly that. Wherever it is that you're listening to, please leave us a 5-star review if you truly believe this is a 5-star review show. Otherwise, don't, obviously. But please also screenshot wherever it is that you're listening to and share it, tag her, tag me, and we're going to reshare it so that way we can get the word out, and that way you get followers, we get followers, and we're all happily ever after. But before we get in the show, guys, I just want to remind you guys, grab a copy of my book, The Power of Being Uncomfortable. It is out everywhere. It is on Amazon. It is on Barnes & Noble and all the other great stores. But if you want an autographed copy, go to billythekid.com, and I'm going to mail you an autographed copy. If you don't want an autographed copy, shame on you. Grab it on Amazon and everywhere else books are available. I also want you to follow the show, the podcast, whether it's on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or on Google. Wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, please follow the podcast and my music. I am on all those areas as well for my music. So stay tuned by following, and I got so many great things coming up. Again, life-changing shows like this one, my music to motivate you to keep going. And I am pretty sure by the time this airs, I'm going to have my song, The $1,000,000 Hustle, theme song out as well, so go check that out. It's a great song for you to do your workout, or if you're driving and you just want that extra motivation, it's definitely that. Otherwise, I have all other kind of, I have Winner's Circle out there. I have Open Minded, all these great conscious motivational songs. Excuse me. But yeah, I think otherwise, guys, I am ready to dive in. I guess one more announcement. If you are interested in joining the Get Uncomfortable Mastermind, please hit up info@billythekid.com or message me on my Instagram or social media in general, and we will get back to you. We would love to have you. And also, as of right now, I'm still doing one-on-ones. Again, I don't know for how long, but for sure, if you're interested, info@billythekid.com. Otherwise, get around great people, right? Like get around all the people in the mastermind and just killing it, doing their thing. And that's the people you want to surround yourself with. So if you're interested, please hit me up. But I think I am ready, guys. I'm just ready to dive in. Again, she is a warrior. She is a great human being. And get ready to change your life, guys. This episode is truly a life-changing show, as I always promise. So with no further ado, here is Amberly Lago, baby. Vámonos. Welcome to the $1 Million Hustle Podcast, baby. It is your boy, Billy the Kid, a.k.a. BDK. I am super excited today because I have 2 daughters, and the person I have on the other end today is one of the strongest people that I know. That's a woman, and I'm excited to share her story today. Amberly, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm so happy to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, thank you for taking time. I know you've been traveling, and which we'll talk about all the good stuff you got going on. And so this is the $1 Million Hustle, and it's about the person you need to become in order for you to get to that milestone, right? Because a lot of people think that it's like a financial thing, and the reality is that no, you have to become a certain person if you want to get to that level. So I know you know a little something about that with all the great stuff that you've done and the stuff that you're building going forward as well. So at the beginning of the show, what I like to do is just if you tell us where you're from and kind of how you grew up and kind of how you got to where you're at now, and then we'll kind of cover the in between there.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, it's so crazy. So I am actually in Texas right now. I just moved back to Texas. I was born in a small town in Texas, and I think from the time I was about 8 or 9 years old, I knew that I was going to move to California and be a professional dancer. And I don't know exactly how I knew that, but I went around telling everybody that that's what I was going to do. And I don't think they even believed it until, I graduated from high school and packed up my little Suzuki Samurai. And I was like, I'm out of here. I'm moving to California. And the last words, my mom was like, why are you taking all of your stuff? You're going to be back in a couple of weeks. And then I went to go say goodbye to my dad and my stepmom. And she's like, I think you're making a big mistake. And I was so determined. First of all, I think I was pushed by pain because I didn't have a real safe place to live in. I was sexually abused by my stepfather. And so I never really had a safe place to live there. And then I was pulled by my purpose of dancing. And so I was going to do whatever it took to save up enough money to get by for a little while on my own until I found a job in California. So I worked 4 jobs. I was a lifeguard. I taught dance. I worked at a little place called the Cookie Jar. And then I babysat. So I managed to save up $1,200 and packed up my little car and off I went. And, I did not realize, I think sometimes ignorance is bliss, because I did not realize it was pretty dangerous. When I first got to California, I ended up in the seediest little motel in Van Nuys in a gang area. And I remember, there were cigarette burns on the wall. And I remember putting a chair underneath the door because I was afraid the guy that worked at the front desk was so, sketchy that he was going to maybe try to get in or somebody would get in. And the next morning I woke up and I thought, what's different about my car? And the very first night I was in California in Van Nuys, the top off of my car, because it was a convertible, top off my car was stolen.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't have enough money to buy a new top. So I wore a poncho when it rained and rode around, but I knew I had this dream of being on scholarship at the Joe Tremaine Dance Studio. It was called the Dance Center. And I thought if I go and I show my face, and I'd saved up enough money to take classes every day, and if I just go there and I show them that I'm serious about this, maybe they'll get to know me, maybe I'll have a chance. And it worked. I was the worst dancer. I was the best dancer coming from this little small town in Texas. I was the worst when it got to coming to LA. There were so many talented people. And to this day, I still think they took me under their wing because they saw that I had grit. They saw that I was going to work hard. And it was a dream come true. And my very first music video that I was ever in was MC Hammer, Can't Touch This. And from there, I was like, I have made it. My dreams have come true. I'm dancing with MC Hammer. And it was a lot. It taught me a lot about rejection and failure and getting back up and trying again. And I think as an entrepreneur, those lessons I learned being a professional dancer carried over into my business as a fitness trainer and the career I had there. And then as an entrepreneur, because we definitely hit a lot of walls, have failures, but it's taught me how to get up again and again and again.
Such an amazing story. And I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface yet, because you have way more to go after that. But let's focus on that. Like, how crazy is it ending up like what I love about this is like you chase your dreams. Like you literally left home and chased your dreams, and you know the hustle behind that and the ambition, right? Like and especially being young like that. So I just want to take my hat off for that. That's amazing. Not a lot of people do that. Not unfortunately, those of you who are listening, like that's what it takes, right? You have to take action. You have to get uncomfortable and go out there and get it done. And MC Hammer, Can't Touch This. That's
is that
amazing.
Crazy or what?
That's amazing. Like, now I'm gonna have to watch the video again.
Yes, it was amazing. And you know what? I love the name of your show. I love your show and the hustle. And you know, when I first got to California, I got 4 jobs within the next 2 weeks. And I remember walking into this little tiny cafe and they had a help wanted sign on the front. And I took the sign in, went into the restaurant, and I said, I'm here for a job. And they're like, you're overqualified. We need a dishwasher. And I was like, no, I really need a job. So I will wash dishes. And they're like, no. And they wouldn't give me the job. And so I went to a restaurant. I'd never waited tables. And I'm like, I need a job. And man, they just put me through like 3 interviews to work at Red Robin, waiting tables. By the 3rd interview, I said, hey, what does it take to get a job here? Like, I told you I'm going to work hard. Just give me a chance. I will show you that I can do this. And so they gave me the job. And then I auditioned at 2 different dance studios. And there I was 18 years old. And I showed up at the dance studio. They didn't have a sign up for teacher wanted or anything. I walked in and I said, hey, I'm a dance instructor. I'd started teaching dance by the time I was age 13 when I started teaching dance. So I had, thanks to my dance instructor, I had a lot of training under me in how to teach dance. And so when I walked into the studio, they said, well, let's see what you got. Teach this next class. And right on the spot, they had me teach a group of girls that were the same age as me. So can you imagine like the attitude I got from like, who's this girl coming in thinking she can teach us? I had to earn their respect. And I did. And I started teaching dancing at that studio they had there and another dance studio. I started my own dance company. And it was a lot about the hustle. And I think the passion that I had inside me. And also, you know what? I didn't have parents that could afford to even help me with food, or they didn't come out to California and be like, here, let's find you a nice little apartment. Let's get you set up. It was like, I had a car payment to make. I had a roof to keep over my head. I had my own bills to pay. And if I was going to make this dream come true, it was up to me to do it.
Well, and it's so crazy. I couldn't help but think, I just posted this quote that I found somewhere in, social media, and it literally, like, as I keep hearing this over and over in your story, and the quote basically said, turn that hurt into hustle, turn that pain into paper. And it literally, like, that's like, I feel like the definition of everything. And I want to tell you, Amberly, that when I met you, the title as well of your book, and those of you who are watching, you see it on the back, True Grit and Grace. And can you describe what that means? Why did you go with that brand? Yo, we'll be right back to this great episode of the $1 Million Hustle podcast. Before we continue, I want you to go grab a copy of my book, The Power of Being Uncomfortable. It is out on Amazon. It is out on Barnes & Noble, Walmart.com, Target.com, and everywhere else books are available. The great news, guys, is you could go to BillyTheKid.com and grab an autographed copy. That is right. I'm going to mail you an autographed copy right now. Audiobook is also available on Audible, and everywhere else audiobooks are available. So go listen to it. Go grab yourself an autographed copy, and I'll see you on the other side, baby. And now back to this great episode of the $1 Million Hustle podcast.
Well, thank you. That's such a great question. And by the way, I absolutely loved meeting you, and I'm so glad that I got to meet you in person. And I just appreciate you taking the time to come over and talk with me. I was speaking at Ken Joslin's event in Atlanta. Or was that one in Atlanta? Yeah. I've been all over the place.
Shout out
I think
Ken,
that was in
too.
Atlanta.
Shout out to Ken Joslin, man. Such a great dude.
Yeah, he is. And I didn't expect. So I said, yeah, I'd be happy to give everybody a free book. Come to my table afterwards. I had no idea. I walked around the corner and I was just going to go sit in the audience, and I had a line of people that were there to get a book. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And for you to stand there, and I got to talk with you. So that really meant a lot to me. So thank you so much.
Yes.
And I went with True Grit and Grace because all I knew was about grit. Like I mean, I'm not good at that many things, but I was good at the grit. I was never the most talented. I was never the best dancer. I was never the prettiest. I never had the most money or any of it, but I was good at the grit. I was good at the hustle. And that's all I knew to do. And I didn't realize until I had, a horrific motorcycle accident where, I woke up from a coma and learned they were going to amputate my leg. And I had 34 surgeries to save my leg from amputation. And it was really the grit that went along, behind like learning to walk again, getting through each surgery, the mindset that it took to get through even the pain of everything. But it was by the grace of God. And it's also the grace that I've had to learn to give myself along the journey, that I couldn't really tap into resilience without grit plus the grace. And that the grace has been a blessing from God. But the grace that I give myself is still something that I sometimes struggle with, because I come from a background of, you push through the pain. I was an athlete. My coach was like a drill sergeant, and she was like, I don't care if you're throwing up on the track, get off the track to throw up and keep running. It's up to you to get us to district. My dance teacher didn't care if our toes were bleeding in our point shoes. I just saw my dance teacher. So my little niece takes dance, and she takes dance from my dance teacher this many years later.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Oh my goodness. It's amazing. And she's been my biggest mentor. And we were just talking about this last week, that I was in a car accident and I had broken my leg, and I went to the dance studio and we were doing a can. And I said, yeah, Miss Jackie, I said, do you remember? I said, I was backstage and I didn't know my leg was broken. I just knew it was really hard to walk. And, you came backstage and you were like, Amberly, are you going to be able to do this or not? And I'm like, I am going to be able to do this. And she goes, and then your grandmother came running in the auditorium and said, they just looked at the x-rays. Your leg is broken. Get off of it. So I was always used to pushing through pain and pushing hard and hustle and working, but I had a lot of misconceptions about grit. I mistook like health scares for heroic acts. I mistook, missing things and for, I was stubborn and I mistook that for grit. There were so many things I mistook. And what I really realized is that in order to be resilient, in order to thrive, and in order to have something sustainable as an entrepreneur, in order to find joy on the journey, we have to have grit with connection. And that's where we find the resilience. Grit with the grace. And that's where we find resilience.
Wow.
When it's all about the grit, man, it's like moving through quicksand. We hit walls, we hit rock bottoms, we get burnout. It's like clawing our way to the top. But like when I get to connect with you and I get to build with you and I get to like talk to you about podcasting and share your podcast on all my social media and my website, my newsletter, that's connection. That's where we both grow. That's where we both can thrive. And so it was hard. That's a long answer for where did the grit and the grace come from? But the grit,
and it was expected, Amberly. It was expected because that, like I said, the name, like I said, it got my attention. I'm like, yes, like I live by that. And so I expected it to mean this much to you. So it's a great answer. Like I love it. And there's a few questions with that. I'm going to ask you this personally because it's funny. We were just having lunch, me and my wife, and one of the things, and because the same, like my traumas, I also turned it into that hustle, right? That like let's turn that pain and keep it going, right? So we could get better. And now that I have kids, we're trying to find like a thin line, right? Like between, obviously you still have to feel things, right? Like you still got to have feelings and talk and say how you feel, but then also let's keep it going. Like we can't settle, with however you're feeling that day. Like you still have to get up and keep it going, right? So my question to you would be, how have you handled that, where it is okay to give, obviously to feel things, but also you still have that grit, right? That you have to keep it going.
Well, that's such a great question. And I think when you have kids, it kind of changes. It changed everything for me. And I realized, so I'll give you a little backstory. Like my stepfather, he was an evil man. I mean, he sexually abused me, but he also like emotionally traumatized me. And he would get me to the point where he would want to make me cry. And when I did cry, he would laugh in my face and say, I told you so. I knew I could get the best of you. I knew I could make you cry. And so for years, as this small little girl, oops, sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
For years, sorry, that was my husband calling. He when I don't answer, it calls again and he like freaks out that I don't answer the phone. I think he's still traumatized from my motorcycle accident.
Yeah.
But as a child, I learned not to cry. And for years, that was my defense. I didn't cry. I didn't want anyone to see me cry. And it wasn't until I had my oldest daughter and we were running through the airport and the doors shut to the airplane. I could see the airplane backing away and I realized we had missed our flight. And I just dropped all my bags and I started crying. And my daughter looked up at me and she's like, Mama, I didn't know you knew how to cry. And it was at that moment, this story that I had created for myself of I had to be strong and I had to do all these things is not just a story that I created for myself, but it was a story that I had kind of created for my family. And I realized I don't want my daughters to grow up thinking that it's not okay to cry, to not express their feelings. And so there is a fine line, and I swear between me and my husband. So my husband is a lieutenant commander with a highway patrol. He's recently retired, but he's always like, suck it up. Don't cry. Crying's for wusses. Like, and I'm like, baby, you just cry. You let it all out. So I'm like, she's going to need therapy because she's got one parent telling her one thing, the other parent telling her another thing. But it makes me think of what my grandfather said. He always said, You've got a shovel in your hand. You can lean on it and pray for a hole, or you can start digging.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, we got to lean on the shovel or lean on each other. We got to pray. Sometimes we have to cry, but if we really want to get her done, we got to start digging. We got to keep going. We got to keep moving forward. And now I'm all about let's cry, let's feel the feelings, because for too long I stuffed them down, I numbed them out. And then it was one day when that led me to a rock bottom, because there's only so much you can stuff down. That I thought there's got to be a better way. I thought we heal what we reveal, and we are only as sick as our secrets. And
Oh,
so
wow.
I think that it's a very important for us to let our feelings rise to the surface so we can deal with them. We can talk to each other about them. And I think it's what connects us on a deeper level.
Hmm.
But then it's important to move forward. And so,
Wow.
yeah, so it's impressive to see my youngest daughter has got such, well, both my daughters have grit and grace, but man, my youngest daughter, she's a horseback rider, and she will literally get thrown off the horse, might shed a tear, and then she gets right back up on that horse.
Love it. And so you mentioned trauma. How have you handled it? You did say that I love that, by the way, like revealing it, right? Like that's definitely how you cure the trauma. But what work have you done, Amberly, to just get over all the pain and all the, obviously, life, I feel like it's a never ending pain, but we can also make it a little easier as we get older, right? And more wisdom, and having these type
Mm-hmm.
of relationships, like talking to you right now, right? Like it makes me feel better, and knowing like we're not alone. And those of you who are listening, I think it's very important to know you're not alone in the journey of life. Like even just listening to a podcast, read her book, read my book, like you're gonna find that we all have stories. And I love that, like revealing them. Like that just like hit me hard, Amberly, because I've done that with my music, with like everything that I do is how I've revealed my story. And I always say this mic is like my therapist, right? Like, just me talking and the music that I've recorded. So how have you dealt with it? What kind of like mental work and physical work have you done to get over the trauma? Because you've gone through some tough times, and that's why you are where you're at.
Well, thank you so much. And I just respect and admire everything that you're doing. I think you're setting such an incredible example, and you're sharing your experience and how you've overcome so much. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you
And
so much.
I I hid my pain for a long time. I didn't want people to know that I was diagnosed with an incurable nerve disease. I didn't want people to know that I was in severe pain. I didn't want people to see all my scars. And so on the outside, I was really trying to hold it up like everything was okay. And on the inside, I felt like I was dying. And what started happening was I was trying everything to treat this pain, this physical pain that feels like a vice grip on my foot and battery acid running through my veins from
Mm,
complex regional pain syndrome. And I was doing very invasive surgeries and drastic procedures. I was on 73 homeopathic pills and 11 prescription medications at one time, and
wow.
nothing was working. And I remember I was just like trying to stuff it down and suck it up. Like I've got a PhD in suck it up. And I was like, I can suck it up. I can hustle. I can get this, but I could only do so much. And then I really hit a rock bottom, and I started drinking every day. And then I had so much shame, because I was like, I really asked myself this, how did a good girl like me end up like this? Drinking every day to cope with pain. I became a full blown alcoholic, and I went from being this elite athlete sponsored by Nike on top of the world to now I'm living out of a bottle. And it
Mm,
took me really taking a good hard look at my life and getting into acceptance. And I think that acceptance for where you are on your journey is the key to any transformation. And so
wow.
I really was like, I've got a problem and I need help. And I can't keep doing this on my own, or I am going to die. I was that desperate. And I think that there's gift in desperation. And it took every ounce of courage in me. But I remember, and I think that courage came from God. I got on my knees and I prayed. And then I reached out to somebody that I knew who was sober, and I was like, I need help. I got a problem. And they're like, I can help you. I can take you to a 12-step recovery meeting. And then I didn't hear from them again. And I thought a week went by, and I thought, no, I need help now, or I'm really going to die. I'm not going to make it another day. And so I Googled 12-step recovery. I found a meeting where my kids were in school and my husband was at work. And I then went from sneaking my drinking to sneaking going to recovery. And I remember just how you said something so powerful. You said, you're not alone. Like, I felt so alone when I went into my first meeting. I realized all these other women had experienced something similar to me. And I heard hope in what they shared, and I kept going back. And so, yes, I went to therapy, but I went to a 12-step recovery. I went to meetings almost every day. I cried almost every day for a year or more. I started sharing what I was going through with people that I trusted. And then I always say if you're going to share on social media or through a podcast or even my book, I had to share from a scar and not an open wound. So I had to do a lot of self-development, do a lot of therapy, do hundreds of meetings. I got sober in 2019, and I still check in with my sponsor almost every day, and I meet her face to face every week. I still go to meetings. I still do daily readings. I still, have a therapist, and I believe that we can get better, whether it's healing trauma or whether it's climbing the ladder of success in your business, by community and by relationships. And I would not be where I am today without the deep connections that I've made along the way. And I think that when we come together and we support one another, that we're unstoppable. So if you're listening to this, if you can take away one thing from this, he said it, I'm saying it, you are not alone in this journey. Reach out for help. If you're struggling, whether it's emotionally, financially. I mean, I was struggling. We had money. We had $2.9 million worth of medical expenses, a lien on our house. I was struggling in every way. And I want to just say that there are ways to get through that. And on the other side of that is freedom once you really feel your feelings.
Wow. And I wanted to ask you this, Amberly. Obviously, the accident that you had is, I would love to hear, because I truly believe a lot of it is also mental, but you had physical pain that you had to also fight. So the question would be, how did you get through that mentally and physically? And would you agree that mentally is probably the number one thing first before even physically, right?
Oh yeah, you said it. And I have to say that I think it all starts with your mindset. And I got a lot of haters that came out of the woodwork when I went on the doctor's TV. And, when you're on a TV show, a lot of times they'll edit it to make it shorter. And they edited out the part of the interview where I said I'd tried all these different things for treatment and none of it worked. And they just kept in that I get through pain. You can get through pain with your mindset. And that pissed a lot of people off. And I'm like, but that is how I get through pain, because I still have pain, and sometimes severe, to where I can't even wear, like, I don't even have a shoe on my right foot right now because there's pain. But there are ways mentally that you can strengthen your mindset to get through that. And it's all how you look at something. And sometimes it's up to you to just really shift your perspective. And so I think being an athlete and a dancer really helped prepare me to get through the pain physically, because there were days when I'd be in the hospital bed and I had these metal rods that basically held my leg together, and my leg was completely exposed on two sides. And every 3 hours they would have these bandages on my leg, and they would have to peel these bandages off and replace them with new bandages. And the pain from it was so severe. My husband couldn't even stay in the room because I couldn't contain the screams. I couldn't, it was torture. And I would hold on to the side of the railing, and I would literally watch the clock. And it was like, okay, I got 3 more hours before they're going to come and torture me again. And if it weren't for my mindset of, that I developed the grit that I had learned through tough times being an athlete and had to push myself further than I thought that I could go, or a dancer showing up and not giving up when my body was completely exhausted. I think that is what really helped me. But I have to say that there is power in prayer, and I prayed for strength from God, and there's power of prayer. I had prayer warriors that were praying for me. And I think that lifted a lot of my pain, just knowing that I wasn't doing it alone, that there was a force greater than me that was going to get me through it. Because I don't think it was just me. I couldn't have gotten through it all by myself. It was, yes, it comes from deep within you, but it also comes from the support around you, comes also from your connection to your higher power, who I call God. And so I think that's how I got through that. And I would say the quickest way to shift the way that you feel about your circumstances or the way that you're feeling, and this is something that seems so simple, but it's something I still do every single day, is the moment I start to focus on my pain. I mean, it's important to acknowledge the pain and see what is it your body's trying to tell you, or what is it that your emotions are trying to tell you. But to get out of that place, because I don't want to stay in that place, I shift it with gratitude. And man, gratitude's alchemy. Turns what you can't do into what you can do, and what you don't have into what you do have. And it's been a life changer for me, as far as like shifting my mindset every single day from the moment I wake up.
Wow. And so powerful. Again, those of you who are listening, I mean, literally, like, it starts in your mind for sure, right? And you just heard her, like, even like the stuff you're going through right now, Amberly, even currently, and those of you who aren't following her, please do now if you are not yet, because I think that's why I love everything that you do, Amberly, because you're very authentic. Like, you're not scared to, obviously, this first half of the show, you've already shared all these craziness that you have gone through, and I feel like that's what makes your story so powerful, and that's why I gravitate towards it. And I know everybody that follows you and goes to the events that you put together and stuff. I know in your social media you did shares. If you could talk a little bit about with your husband. I know you had your Unstoppable event coming up, and
Oh yeah.
and it's like, again, life keeps testing the strong soldiers, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, it's not that you have resilience and then you're good, or you've overcome something and you're good. It's like, no, life is always going to throw challenges your way. And I think that you need to work on your resilience before you actually need it. You need to work on your mindset before you actually have a huge challenge. You need to prepare your body and your health before you get sick.
Wow.
And recently, I was putting together a big event, and my husband had to have not one surgery, but two surgeries. His first surgery had complications. And here I was going, I had 22 speakers flying in to come and speak at this Unstoppable Success Summit that I put together, that I'd been putting together for months. And I felt kind of defeated. I felt like how could I leave my husband at home to have surgery when he was by my side for 34 surgeries and go do this event? And I had members of my Unstoppable Life mastermind. They're like, you stay home, take care of your husband. We'll run the show. I mean, they stepped up. Talk about servant leaders. They were amazing. And my husband was like, we have been through way too much. We've been through way, way too much for you to stop now. This event's called Unstoppable Success Summit for a reason. You are going to go put that crazy suit that you bought for this event, and you're going to go stand on that stage, and you're going to show people how to be unstoppable.
Wow.
And for him to give me that support was amazing. But it was an incredible event, and the Holy Spirit was at that event. Let me tell you, it was incredible. And I come home, and to him having another surgery, and then the very next week, we were scheduled to record on your show, I think Monday or Wednesday this week. And my dad passed away. And, I think yesterday was the first day that I didn't cry about that I felt a little stronger. Um, but everything that I've been through has allowed me to strengthen my resilience. And that's the thing. Like, we get to decide. It's not your circumstances that define you. It's what you decide to do with what's left.
Wow.
And I decided I want to be a product of my resiliency, not a product of my circumstances. And
Mm,
so the way I've been able to even get back to work and to keep going, because people are like, what the heck? Like, you were in the ER, your husband had surgery, your dad just passed away. How are you still running this mastermind, coaching, doing your podcast, speaking at events? And it's because I've developed that mindset and that grit. And I have something called PACER. It stands for perspective, acceptance, community, endurance, and rest. And there's a free download. So if you're listening and you want to strengthen your resilience and you want to download this, it's something that I use every single day. It's free. Just text me the word grit, just grit, GRIT, to 818-214-7378. And you'll get a free download, because it's one thing. I don't want you to just listen and feel inspired, or, oh, well, I haven't been through that much. We all go through stuff. We all have been hit by something. And I want you to have this tool that you can apply it to, whether you're in fear, whether you're in pain, whether you're anxious, whether you're sad. This will help you get through and be more resilient. And it stands for, like I said, perspective, shifting your perspective, being in acceptance, building your community, strengthening your endurance, and getting enough rest.
wow. And I keep hearing acceptance. I feel like a lot of people run away from whatever it is that they're going through, right? And it's funny, like it makes so much more sense now. Like, I keep hearing acceptance from you, and I feel like you have done that a lot throughout your story, and even just the recent events that you just shared with us. If we could dig a little bit deeper into accepting, those of you who are listening, I think it's very important. Wherever it is that you're going through, you have to accept it. Like, it is what it is. You can't and especially blaming whatever circumstances, right? Or even questioning God, for example. I think that's why I keep hearing it in your story, and I would love to hear what's your perspective on that, accepting.
Oh, well, that's such a great question, because that was actually the hardest thing for me to do. I did not want to accept that I was going to be diagnosed with this nerve disease and it was going to be incurable. And this was the rest of my life. Like, what? The rest of my life? I was told I was going to be permanently disabled, that I would never walk again,
Oh,
and to
wow.
stay in my wheelchair. And I
Mm,
was like, what? That cannot be my life. I wasn't in acceptance for the way that I looked. I used to work out with, I was a fitness trainer, and I used to train with the bodybuilders, with the guys.
mm,
Um, my nickname was Legs, and I had some strong legs. And now all of a sudden my leg is deformed. It's scarred up from the hip down, doesn't work properly. So I was in denial. And that is what led me into drinking, to try to, like, not accept, because I realized I didn't want to accept the sexual abuse either. And I did not realize until I was completely bedridden for months at a time after my motorcycle accident that my whole life I had run. And that's what we do, right? When we come up with challenge, instead of maybe being acceptance, we go into fight or flight. And so I was like, just running from pain, running,
wow.
escaping, and doing it in a healthy way, like physically running. I became,
Hmm.
one of the fastest runners. I set a state record in Texas for running the fastest mile. But when I couldn't do that anymore, and I didn't want to accept it, that's when I started drinking. And it wasn't until I hit the lowest part of my life. And that wasn't when, after my motorcycle accident, this was when I started drinking every day to not accept. And I remember thinking, well, this is just not going to work. I'm just going to go back in and ask this doctor to amputate my leg. And I went in, And he did something that changed everything for me. He put my leg in his lap and he looked at it like it was a miracle, like that was his masterpiece, and something shifted in me. And I thought, if he can look at it that way, maybe I can learn to look at it that way too. And I think that sometimes when we're having a hard time accepting something, when we can see it in somebody else's eyes, or we have somebody that accepts us or loves us or believes in us before we can believe or accept or love ourselves, that really helps. But let me tell you, acceptance is not defeat. It is freedom. It gives you the ability to be in the driver's seat of your life and make the best decisions. You can start to take action steps with grit. And here's a question that I would ask yourself. If you're having a hard time accepting something, like, I really encourage you to look at, take a good hard look at your life and ask yourself, how's that working for you? Is it hurting you or is it helping you? And then I say my favorite prayer every day. In fact, I have it on a board over here, and it's the Serenity Prayer. And it says, God, grant me the ability to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And so by asking myself, how's that working for you? That helps. And by saying that prayer, that helps. But also by looking at acceptance as freedom instead of defeat was a life changer for me.
Wow. Yeah, no, and I love that, because I've met a lot of people that it's almost like they live in this lie because they're not accepting where they're at truly, and where they, and what life has thrown at them. They think they're in this perfect bubble, we'll say, and it's like, it doesn't work like that. I feel like the minute you accept where you are financially, mentally, physically, and everything, is the minute that your life is going to start changing. And that's why I love that. And I kept hearing it from you, so I had to ask. And obviously you are a true definition of accepting. And guys, I also want to make it clear, like, you guys have read my story, have heard the stuff that I've gone through, and listening to Amberly, it takes guts to do what we do. Like, it really does. Like, when we share these stories and we let you know, but also we're for one curing ourselves, right? Like, I love that you said reveal earlier. That, like, that's literally, like, that hit me really hard. And also it's to encourage other people, because life is not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And this is what makes you unique. This is your story. This is what God created for you to fight for, and for you to be an example for others. So I love that. I just want to tell you, Amberly, thank you so much for sharing so much personal life and just all the stuff that you share. That's why you are where you're at. That's why people gravitate to you, because you're just keeping it real, girl. I just want to tell you that I love that about you. And
well, I love that about you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I just want to ask you now. I know you hang around some great people. You've been doing your thing, speaking and coaching and all the great stuff that you do. What is the most single piece of advice that like the best piece of advice you've ever heard from somebody?
That's a good question. I would think that something actually my dance teacher said to me years ago is that's helped me in my career to stay professional and keep moving forward, and to get through days where I might be in a lot of pain, and this is really going to date me, because she used to say, she mentored me and taught me how to be a dance teacher. And she would say, this is kind of harsh, but she would say, I don't care if you just lost your best friend or your dog died. When you put the needle on the record and turn around to teach the class, you put on a smile on your face and you do the best that you can do. Wow. And I know that sounds pretty harsh, but it was like, that was back then. We had to put the needle on the record and then turn around and teach. But it taught me that no matter what's going on, like, show up and give your best. Like, show up and give your best. Make every single room that you walk into better than it was before. leave every single person that you touch or you talk to with value and better, feeling better than they did before. And I think that really helped me. And I think that just staying humble and hungry is,
Wow.
really staying humble and grounded has really helped. But there's
Mhm.
so many amazing people that I get to fortunately hang with, Randy Garn and Ed Milet and John Maxwell, and they just say so many amazing things. They're all tweetable and quotable, but I think that growing up with a dance instructor that really taught me the business side of things, how to not just run the business, but how to show up
Mhm.
professionally and be a leader.
No, and that's like it's so simple, quote unquote, right? But it's so it I feel like that's almost like a definition of life. Like get up and keep it going. Like I love that. That's and I love such a long time ago for you that that was something that you kept on and it's keeping you on. So I love that. And you said leave things better, and that's so true. It makes me think. I'm into some real estate as well, and it just makes me think of like flipping a house. Like you leave it better, right? And therefore you receive money. And I feel like that's something overall business, those of you who are listening, that you are supposed to do that. You're supposed to, as an entrepreneur, you're supposed to leave things better than how you found them, so that way you could make your money. And it is okay to get paid for it. Could be as simple as fixing a car, putting new tires, and doing whatever else, and reselling the car for more. That's your profit. And the money comes when you do that, right? Like when you leave things better than how you found them.
We'll be right
Before
back.
we continue,
Go subscribe to Billy the Kid YouTube.
that is Billy, DHAKID.
Also, go follow Billy the Kid Music on Spotify
Pandora, Apple Music.
and everywhere else.
Music is available.
And now, back to this great episode. Let's go.
Hopping out the two, though, wearing number 2 foe. Feel like Kobe, though I'm winning, need to do more. My mama sorry, college wasn't for me. Street smart, no degree, just like Kobe. Self-made boss with a suit like a mogul. I'm the new era, you see it on my logo.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, that's how I ran my business. I mean, this is kind of crazy, but I didn't even own a computer 6 years ago. I had a fitness business. I had several trainers that I employed, and my whole business was word of mouth. And also from people just genuinely being happy from getting the results. That's how I got my business. It's the same thing now through my mastermind. Like if I can get somebody from point A to point B and they're like, their business is exploding, their brand is building, they're going to be running out telling everybody, hey, this is what she did for me. So it doesn't matter whether it's teaching or coaching or whether I'm speaking at an event. I'm like, how can I make this event that this person's running the most incredible experience? And if that means me, hanging out and beforehand and staying after, sweeping the floor. I mean, this last event that I did, I was helping the caterer clean up. And it's the little things like that when we all come together and put in the work and put in that extra effort and do things with kindness and stay humble, that's where I feel like your business starts to grow, your life starts to grow.
Wow. Love it. And what's happiness to you, Amberly? What does happiness mean, and how do you make yourself happy?
I think that to me, happiness is getting to do the things that you love with the people that you love. And I think that we can create our own happiness. It's not up to someone else to do that for us, but it's really getting quiet and still and listening to your heart or intuition or gut, whatever you want to call it, maybe all of it, and asking yourself, what are your values? What's important to you and what brings you joy? And sometimes I think as entrepreneurs, we can get caught up in the hustle. And sometimes it's just hustle, hustle, hustle. And as much as we love what we do, it can be hard or draining, or it can be tiring or physically draining. And so I think in moments like that, R part in the pacer method that I told you about comes in handy, where I've made rest a part of my business strategy. And in that rest is when I can stop, I can really decide, let God speak to me. I can spark creativity, and I can remember to do the things that really make me happy.
Wow. I love that. Yeah, that's to me, that's the definition of happiness right there. So I love that. And as much as I hate to wrap it up, I know you gotta go keep doing your thing, right? Like you gotta go do these massive things that you're doing. So with that being said, I wrote a book called The Power of Being Uncomfortable. And one of the questions that I like to ask at the end of the show, I ask the same questions to every guest for wisdom purposes. The first one is how have you used the power of being uncomfortable? Where what was obviously your story? It's the uncomfortable over and over, but what was the one time that you recall where you got uncomfortable and it paid off?
I would say the very first big talk that I ever did was a TED Talk, and it was a big one. It was in front of 2,500 people for the 10th anniversary Berkeley TEDx. So it was a big one.
Wow.
And I was scared to death. Talk about imposter syndrome. I was the only one that didn't have a PhD. I was like,
Wow.
oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. And they asked me to share the most important message of my life. And I was really scared, but I practiced really hard every day. And when I stood in the middle of that infamous red circle and I gave that talk and I stepped, out of my comfort zone and into the courage, it was life-changing, because after that I started, somebody asked to see that talk yesterday and I looked and it's got like 200,000 views. I'm so glad that I didn't think of that many people watching that talk when I went out there to give that talk, or I really would have been scared. But it really was a life changer. And the fact that after that, I started getting asked to do more and more talks. And now I'm just saying this because I'm pinching myself that this is the busiest I've ever been with doing speaking at events. And I'm sharing that because there was a time not that long ago, back in 2020 when COVID came, and I was I remember going, God, I just don't think this is for me, because I was doing virtual events and it was just talking to myself, which I did not like doing. And I was like, I don't think I'm meant for this. I just don't think I can do this. It's too scary. It's too uncomfortable. And the next call that I got was to go do an in-person event in Florida because they were opening things up. And so I just share that there are always going to be moments where you feel like giving up, or you're thinking, oh, this is too hard, or this is just too uncomfortable. But that's usually when you are just right at the closest to where you are meant to be. And so just keep doing one foot in front of the other, one step at a time, progress, not perfection, and just taking messy action and keep moving forward.
Love it. It's like taking perfect action, and that is perfect, right? I love that. What for another question I have for you is, if you were to look at your younger self now, Amberly, what would be one piece of advice you would tell yourself?
Trust your gut. Your gut never lies. Your head might get confused or tell you something. Your heart might pull at you, but your gut never lies. So always trust your gut.
Love it. And if there were 3 steps to success, if you do these 3 things, you're not going to fail. What are the 3 steps for success?
Taking action every single day, being consistent, stepping out of your comfort zone and just doing it and taking messy action, imperfect action, and surrounding yourself with a great mentor or coach, or getting in a mastermind and not doing it alone.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Where can people find you?
Reach out to me. You can text me at that number, 818-214-7378, especially if you want that free download. But you can find me on social media. Instagram is Amberly Lago Motivation, or my podcast, True Grit and Grace. And you can find my book, the podcast, the mastermind details, and all the upcoming events at amberlylago.com.
Love it. And I couldn't help but I want to ask you this last question here. Is there a book that you have coming that maybe it's just in your head now, or you already started writing, if you don't mind sharing?
Oh my goodness. Well, I need to have you on my podcast because I can't wait to ask you so many questions, like especially this same question.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So I've had a book in my head and on my heart for a long, long time. In fact, but I have to tell you something really funny. So I just finished doing my book and it launched on the Today Show, and I just got interviewed by Megyn Kelly, and I'm like on top of the world. And I go to brunch with my publicist, and she goes, "Okay, so you need to start working on the next book." And I was like, "What? The book just came out today and you already want, it was so hard and you already want me to do another one." And from that book, it has not stopped. It's just like gone and gotten one thing after another after another. But I do have another book that I want to write. In fact, do you know John Gordon? Do you know who John Gordon is?
Yes.
He's written about 26 books.
Yeah, and he was just on shout out to Brendan Turner's podcast that he was just on there. I think he was the first guest on his new podcast, I believe.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
yeah, well,
check it
him
out.
and his wife are amazing. They're friends of mine, and we were talking, and he's like, "I'm really good at titling books, and I have the next title for your book." And I'm like, "Okay, now I just have to write it."
Love it.
I got to carve out that time to do it.
I love it. Wow, and that's crazy. So you had just released, you were on top of the world, quote unquote, right? And hey, where's the next one? So I love that. And it's almost like that's the people you want around too, right? Like keep pushing you to keep doing your thing. It's funny. One of my mentors always says that writing a book is like birthing a teenager, is what he says.
Oh, wow. I like that.
It talks back to you. And
yes, it is. I always said it's like birthing a child, but I like birthing a teenager even better. It is.
Seriously. Well, thank you so much, Amberly. This has been great. I think there were so many other things I wanted to get to. So maybe in the future, we could do a part 2 or something. You're truly amazing. Keep doing your thing. It's inspiring, and we need more women like you to step up and take the lead. Take the lead like you have. So thank you so much. Do you have any final words for people listening?
Oh, I just want to thank you. And I know why your listeners love you so much. And you are truly like just exactly in person, just as amazing and kind as you are like in person versus on screen. And I just thank you for having me on. And yeah, I want to have you on my podcast. So we have to work that out. Yeah.
Yes, okay. Let's do it. Love it. Thank you so much, Amberly. This has been amazing. Those of you who are listening, this has been a 10-star show, but you can only go up to 5. So we'll take the 5-star review. And also, please screenshot wherever it is that you're listening to. Tag Amberly. Tag me on Instagram, wherever it is that you are on social media, and we're going to reshare it. Until next time. Vamonos.
All I was focused on was financial freedom. Thinking we're rich, rich dad, poor dad, you better read them. Millionaire thinking, get a bag, big investments. Chase the bag, then I flip it, be relentless. Not worry about a football game score. Only my credit won what matters anymore. In the 3%, the other 97 drifting. Others do it for themselves, they not thinking. Think for yourself, get rich and build your wealth. Get a run, eat good, watch your health. Think like a millionaire and hustle like you broke. This free game to change your life, you better sow. Think like a millionaire and hustle like you broke. Spit some game, drop the mic after I spoke.